The fluorescent lights in Lab 3 to 7 buzzed faintly overhead, casting a cold, sterile glow over scattered blueprints, disassembled components, and a desk piled high with notebooks covered in frantic scribbles. Luo Chen hunched over a burnt-out prototype, fingers trembling as he made another adjustment. His eyes were bloodshot. He hadn't slept in 31 hours. Again. The once promising superconducting coil, his experimental energy transfer model, had fizzled out after 20 seconds of activation. Another failure. Error, thermal regulation instability. Feedback loop collapse. Power efficiency 13%. He stared blankly at the terminal, the words swimming. That was the third failure this week. A half-eaten instant noodle cup sat beside his mouse. His lab coat was wrinkled, stained with ink, solder, and a little blood from a soldering iron mishap 3 days ago. And the worst part? No one cared. Professor Su, his advisor, had long dismissed his non-traditional research. His lab mates barely remembered he existed. And at the latest department seminar, someone snickered when Luo brought up his theory on zero-loss energy transfer using superconductive lattice matrices. Luo Chen's still playing with sci-fi toys. He should focus on something publishable, like machine learning applications in agriculture. The words rang in his ears. Bitter. Humiliating. He had dreams once. Of changing the world. Of pushing the frontiers of science. But here he was, 21 and stuck, brilliant but invisible. Another failure. Another night alone. His head throbbed. His limbs felt like they weighed 100 kilos. As he stood to grab another coffee, the room tilted violently. Bang! He collapsed face first onto the cold lab floor, unconscious before he hit it. Darkness. Then. Lightbulb super scholar system initializing. Lightbulb cognitive signature matched. Host recognized, Luo Chen. Lightbulb super scholar system activated. His eyes snapped open. The lab was gone. Instead, he floated in a space of infinite white, his body suspended as glowing text hovered before him. A calm, genderless robotic voice echoed in his mind. Welcome, Luo Chen. Your scientific revolution begins now. He gasped. What is this? A dream? This is the Super Scholar System. You have been selected as host. Purpose, to usher in a new era of scientific enlightenment. You are the vessel. The catalyst. His mind reeled. Initial synchronization complete. White heavy checkmark instant comprehension activated. White heavy checkmark prototype optimization activated. White heavy checkmark thesis generation module locked. White heavy checkmark research store access locked. White heavy checkmark real-time simulation module locked. First task, correct the failed prototype on your desk. Time limit, 10 minutes. Luo Chen blinked as his body jolted. In the real world, his eyes snapped open again. He was back in his lab, face down on the floor. But something was different. His thoughts were clear, sharp like never before. Concepts he once struggled with now fit together effortlessly. Equations solved themselves in his mind. Patterns emerged like they'd always been there. He sat up, looked at the prototype, and saw the issue instantly. The feedback loop isn't failing, it's resonating out of phase due to microvibrational heat bloom in the capacitor array. He didn't even think, his hands moved on their own. Adjusted the spacing. Rerouted the modulation buffer. Reinforced the casing with thermal stabilizers. 8 minutes later, the coil activated. Whir, hum. The energy flowed perfectly. No noise. No spark. Stable output. Zero loss. Luo Chen stared at it. And then he laughed. A sound that hadn't come out of him in months, maybe years. This time, when he looked into the lab mirror, he didn't see a tired, overworked student. He saw the beginning of a legend. Task complete. Prototype success. Reward, thesis generation module unlocked. He grinned. So that's how it is. Then let's begin. At precisely 4:37 a.m., Chen sat at his desk, the lab unusually quiet. A new energy buzzed under his skin, not from caffeine or adrenaline, but from something deeper. The system's voice spoke again, calm and absolute. Thesis generation module unlocked. Please input target subject or question. Chen didn't hesitate. Thermonuclear plasma confinement using dynamic magnetic field lattices. This was the foundation of the thesis Professor Su had rejected 6 months ago. At the time, Luo had proposed a novel stabilization method for high-energy fusion reactions, but it was deemed mathematically unfeasible. He had spent months patching equations, testing models, and getting laughed at for what they called science fiction fantasies. But now? The moment he entered the topic, countless streams of information unfolded in his mind like an ancient machine awakening. Equations clarified. Vague ideas became precise algorithms. The flaws in his previous calculations practically screamed at him. Within seconds, the thesis generation module activated. Generating outline. Introduction. Literature comparison. Novel theory integration. Estimated time to completion, 4 minutes. Luo's fingers hovered above the keyboard. He didn't even need to type, he understood the structure. He could write it himself. No, he wanted to. He began to draft the paper by hand, channeling the insights pouring into his brain. For the first time in his life, writing a paper felt like painting with light. The core theory, the magnetic field matrix capable of dynamically adapting to plasma pressure, wasn't just theory anymore. He could see it working in his mind, like watching a live simulation. Comprehension module, enhanced. Field mastery achieved, thermonuclear physics, level 1. Luo blinked. Level 1? That implied higher levels. A hierarchy of understanding far beyond even what top scholars could grasp. His paper, titled Dynamic Flux Containment, A New Paradigm in Fusion Stability, was complete by sunrise. 40 pages. 12 original equations. 3 simulation graphs he generated from memory. One devastating conclusion: the current global understanding of fusion was obsolete. And he had the proof. He didn't even care about publication. Not yet. But he couldn't resist sharing it. He uploaded it anonymously to ARXCore, the largest academic preprint server in the world, under the simple pseudonym LX001. Then he sat back, eyes burning with exhaustion and something else, anticipation. The system chimed again. Bonus task completed, thesis submission. Reward, research store access unlocked. A new interface appeared in his mind, shimmering like a digital vault. He browsed briefly. Clean Fusion Core, Tier 2, 300 research points. AI Neuromorphic Kernel Design, 400 RP. Autonomous Medical Nanobots, 600 RP. Cold State Quantum Battery Blueprints, 800 RP. His breath caught. This wasn't futuristic tech, it was impossible tech. Revolutionary. And it was within reach. But his time was short. He needed credibility. Resources. A foothold. That paper, it would cause ripples. He could feel it. Meanwhile, across the world, professors, researchers, and doctoral candidates checking their morning feeds paused when a new submission shot to the top of the trending queue on ARXCore. Unreviewed. No institutional affiliation. No fame. But undeniably brilliant. By noon, the academic world was stirring. By nightfall, the storm would begin. The paper titled Dynamic Flux Containment, A New Paradigm in Fusion Stability spread like a virus through the academic world. It didn't just make noise, it ignited war. At first, it was just fringe researchers whispering in chat groups. Did you read LX001's paper? He's claiming adaptive plasma stabilization using fourth-order tensors. Is this a prank? But then someone ran the math. And it worked. A physicist at Princeton stayed up all night rewriting the equations.
By morning, he'd sent a stunned email to 3 Nobel laureates.
At CERN, a research assistant casually shared the paper during a lunch break. By the time her coffee went cold, half the table was crowded around a tablet, arguing.
And in Beijing, Luo Chen's old department head, Professor Su, nearly choked on his tea when he saw his discarded theory rewritten, enhanced, perfected, and already quoted by international peers.
Who the hell is LX001? Within 24 hours, the paper was downloaded 130,000 times. Within 48 hours, top journals sent urgent review invitations. By the end of the week, it was trending on major science outlets.
Anonymous paper redefines fusion physics. Is this the future of clean energy? Breakthrough or fraud? Scientists divided over LX001.
Luo Chen watched it all unfold from his modest dorm room, sipping cheap coffee with shaking hands.
Not from fear. From adrenaline. He could hear the system in his mind. Global academic impact detected. Reputation points plus 500. Research store expanded. New module unlock progress, 47%. He leaned back, heart pounding. All the emails were pouring in anonymous inbox or not. Universities offering collaboration. Tech firms waving vague funding promises.
Review boards requesting video conferences to confirm authorship.
He ignored them all. He wasn't done yet.
This was just the first ripple. He opened the thesis generation module again.
Next subject, quantum-linked material transfer. Side project, formal rebuttal to Su's 2019 paper on entropy balance in closed superconductive loops. Not out of spite, out of precision.
If the world wanted to know who he was, they'd find out. But it wouldn't be through a leaked identity or some magazine profile.
It would be through impact, each paper a bullet. Each breakthrough a blow to the old order.
And still, he couldn't help but smile when he checked the university forum.
There, in a thread titled, "Who is LX001, buried under wild speculation," one of his classmates had posted.
I swear the math style looks like Luo Chen's work.
No way.
That guy failed Su's lab review.
Even if it is him, it doesn't matter. No one like that stays anonymous for long. They were right about one thing. He wouldn't stay anonymous.
But when the world finally looked up and saw Luo Chen for who he really was, it wouldn't be with skepticism.
It would be with awe.
Beijing Institute of Advanced Sciences, Main Lecture Hall.
A special academic seminar had been hastily arranged.
Officially, the topic was Emerging Theories in Fusion Stability.
Unofficially, everyone knew what this was about, LX001. Top faculty from multiple universities had gathered. Journalists with science credentials lurked in the back. Students packed the side aisles.
And standing smugly at the center of it all, adjusting his mic, was Professor Su Guangli,
Luo Chen's former advisor.
He hadn't slept well the past few days, not since he realized the anonymous paper tearing through the academic world looked eerily similar to a thesis draft he had personally ridiculed and discarded 6 months ago.
But Su wasn't about to admit that.
I've reviewed the LX001 paper, Su began confidently, pulling up slides, and while some formulations are creative, it lacks foundational coherence. A few clever tricks do not overturn a century of fusion physics. The screen flashed red as he highlighted sections in the uploaded paper. As you can see, equation 17 contradicts the conserved energy model in superconductive magnetodynamics.
This is amateur error at best. Polite nods rippled through the audience. Some took notes.
Others exchanged glances. In the back row, Luo Chen leaned forward in his seat, expression calm. He wore a clean black jacket, hair neatly combed for once. Few recognized him yet. He didn't speak until the moderator opened the floor for questions. He raised his hand.
Yes, you in the back, state your name and affiliation. Luo stood. Luo Chen.
Department of Applied Theoretical Physics. Professor Su flinched.
A few students turned. Whispers began. Luo stepped forward slowly, pulling out a tablet.
With all due respect, Professor Su, your critique of equation 17 is based on a misreading of the third-order tensor transformation outlined in Appendix B.
The room stilled. The conserved energy model isn't contradicted, it's refined. The paper redefines the interaction boundary using flux-adaptive lattices, which your slides omitted.
Luo's fingers danced across the tablet, casting his own projection onto the secondary screen. A corrected set of equations appeared, flawless, logical, elegant.
Here's a full simulation, run on a basic 3-node neural solver.
Note the stable containment curve at 1.2 seconds, beyond anything previously achieved.
Gasps echoed. Professor Su opened his mouth, then closed it. A trickle of sweat ran down his neck. This isn't.
Your model fails at 0.4 seconds, Luo interrupted calmly.
I've replicated it. And I corrected it.
Which you would have known, if you'd read the full appendix.
The silence was thunderous. Then, from the second row, a guest professor from Tsinghua University murmured. Wait. You're LX001?
Luo turned to face the crowd, his voice steady.
I am. Flashbulbs went off. Phones were raised.
Dozens of faces turned to stare, first in disbelief, then in awe.
Luo Chen published that paper? But he's just a student. That theory Professor Su dismissed. He rewrote the field and embarrassed the top physicist in the country?
The moderator cleared his throat awkwardly.
Air. Mr. Luo, Dr. Luo, would you be willing to stay after for a Q&A session?
And perhaps a guest lecture series.
Luo offered a polite nod, then turned and walked back to his seat.
Professor Su remained frozen at the podium.
Humiliated. Defeated.
He had built his reputation on dominance, on towering over junior researchers, on dismissing anything that didn't fit his narrow worldview. And in front of a packed auditorium, a student he'd ignored had dismantled him with logic and facts.
Later that night, Luo received a groveling email. Luo Chen.
I may have been too harsh on your prior proposals.
Upon reflection, I see merit in your direction. Would you consider co-authoring a follow-up to your recent paper? I believe we could. Delete.
He didn't need apologies.
He had science.
The storm hadn't passed, it had only begun.
3 days after the seminar incident, Luo Chen's inbox was overflowing. International journals begged for interviews.
University chairs offered honorary degrees.
Foreign research institutes hinted at citizenships, full freedom, and blank checks. But what Luo focused on was neither fame nor flattery.
He had been spending every night in a private lab the school didn't even know he had access to, funded discreetly through a grant meant for equipment recycling. And in that hidden lab, under cold white lights and constant surveillance blocking protocols, he built.
Designs flowed from his mind like blueprints from a divine engine.
With the system simulation module unlocked during his reputation surge, every concept could be tested in real time, hundreds of iterations per hour.
His first public project wasn't just academic. It was a disruption. Quantum diffusion power core, prototype A1.
A self-contained, palm-sized energy unit capable of powering a city block for 10 hours with zero loss. The moment he finalized it, the system triggered. Invention complete, Tier 2 technology registered.
Reward, patent module unlocked. Bonus, national IP priority channel access granted. With a single thought, the core's entire design suite was converted into a complete patent package engineered to be ironclad, watertight, and internationally recognized.
He submitted 10 more over the next 48 hours.
Artificial organ scaffolds. High-density computation lattices. Self-repairing alloys. All filed. All real. All his.
The system granted research points for each one, feeding the ever-growing store of next-gen technologies.
Then came the vultures. 2 men in suits approached Luo outside the campus library. Mr. Luo Chen? We're with X-Tech Solutions. We'd like to talk. X-Tech.
A tech conglomerate known for swallowing startups whole and stripping them for parts.
They didn't bother with pleasantries. We understand you've recently filed several high-value patents. Our company is interested in acquiring exclusive rights. Luo didn't stop walking. Not for sale. We're prepared to offer 80 million yuan up front.
Plus a 5-year R&D contract.
Full lab, full autonomy.
Still not for sale. The man narrowed his eyes.
Think carefully. Innovation without industry support goes nowhere.
Luo turned to face them.
You're not offering support. You're offering a muzzle.
Excuse me?
You don't want to build the future. You want to control it. And the first step in controlling it is owning it. He walked away. That night, 2 of Luo's secure terminals were remotely pinged by unauthorized IPs.
A cyber attack, sloppy but persistent. His lab's surveillance systems tripped. They weren't just trying to buy him now. They were trying to steal from him. He reported nothing to the authorities.
Instead, he retaliated.
The next morning, 10 additional patents were filed by Luo Chen, each one directly overlapping with tech domains X-Tech had been working on for years. He used public filings to identify their weak points and innovated right past them. Then he sent one of them a short message through an encrypted academic channel.
You tried to break in. Now I own your roadmap. Steka's stock price dropped 3.5% in 2 hours.
By the end of the day, government officials contacted Luo directly, not to investigate him, but to offer protection. Mr. Luo, the voice on the line said, your patents are considered national-level intellectual assets. You will be assigned a stateside liaison and legal defense team.
Free of charge. Luo smiled.
The rules had changed.
He wasn't a researcher anymore.
He was a one-man industrial revolution.
The National Science and Innovation Summit was usually a formal affair.
A sea of white-haired scholars. Polished speeches. Carefully rehearsed panels.
The occasional drone demo or biotech presentation to keep things lively.
This year, everything was different.
Because Luo Chen was on the guest list.
Officially, he was invited as a special youth contributor to national scientific advancement. Unofficially, the entire event had been restructured around his attendance. By now, every major institution, from the Chinese Academy of Sciences to the Ministry of Technology, knew exactly who he was. The boy who overturned fusion theory. The young man who filed 12 paradigm-shifting patents in a single week. And most importantly, the one they couldn't control.
He arrived alone. No entourage. No media team.
Just a black suit, a custom-made datapad, and calm eyes that looked through people, not at them. The moment he stepped into the conference hall, conversations paused.
Heads turned. Camera shutters clicked. That's him. He's just a student? He walks like a professor. More like a CEO. A seasoned academic from Xi'an leaned toward his colleague. He's not just a researcher. He's a threat.
Midway through the event, Luo was scheduled to participate in a panel titled, Frontiers of Theoretical and Applied Physics. What no one had told him was that the panel was stacked with 3 national laureates, 4 senior institute heads, and 1 international guest from MIT. It was a trap dressed as a spotlight. The goal, humble him. Corner him. Re-establish the hierarchy. Mr. Luo began academicianly, adjusting his glasses. While your recent publications have drawn attention, some of your models lack peer-reviewed verification. How do you respond to concerns that your theories outpace practical feasibility?
Luo didn't flinch.
That's a fair question.
But tell me, when Einstein proposed relativity, was it feasible then? Or did the world simply need time to catch up?
A murmur rippled through the audience.
He continued. I've submitted simulations, experiments, and early-stage prototypes.
What I haven't submitted is permission for outdated institutions to dictate what's realistic. Another panelist tried to regain ground. Bold words, but don't you think academic structure exists for a reason? Peer review, citation standards. Structure is useful. Fossils are not.
Luo cut in smoothly. I respect the scientific method. But I don't worship tradition for its own sake.
Especially when it suppresses progress to protect egos.
Silence. Then whispers.
Then applause, small at first, then growing.
Even the MIT representative gave a tight smile.
Later, when the panel broke for lunch, reporters swarmed.
Mr. Luo, what do you say to being called the demon scholar in media headlines?
I didn't choose that name, he said without breaking stride, but I'll admit it's better than being forgotten. That evening, the summit concluded with national recognitions.
3 recipients were given the Order of Scientific Advancement, the nation's highest civilian science medal. The youngest among them, Luo Chen, age 21.
As the gold medal hung around his neck and the crowd stood in ovation, Luo's system chimed.
Milestone achieved, national recognition. System upgrade initiated, level 2 access unlocked. New feature, Research Institute Constructor module available. His next move was already clear. He wouldn't just be a scholar. He would become an institution.
2 weeks after the summit, Luo Chen's name had become more than famous.
It had become untouchable.
Professors who once dismissed him now studied his papers in silence. Industry leaders no longer called him a promising mind, they called him a threat, a target, and, increasingly, a kingmaker.
Because one signature from Luo could make or break a company's future tech pipeline. But Luo didn't join any of them.
Instead, he made his own move.
In a quiet, overlooked district on the outskirts of Hangzhou, construction began.
Officially, the government listed it as a joint R&D pilot campus.
Unofficially, Luo had full control. The land was gifted by the state under a special directive. The funding?
A mix of redirected venture capital and government-backed research bonds, facilitated by the system's autolegal module and his own patent leverage. And in just 3 months, the world watched as a sleek, glass-walled, AI-managed mega-facility rose from nothing.
Its name? Luo Research Institute. Not Luo Labs. Not Luo Tech. This wasn't a startup. This was a citadel of intellect. The hiring was even more shocking than the building itself. Luo didn't poach from top universities. He picked dropout prodigies who posted genius-level forum theories from internet cafes.
Overworked junior researchers who were blacklisted for insubordination.
Mid-level engineers fired for criticizing outdated workflows. A paraplegic neural coder who hadn't left his house in 4 years, now designing bionic limb schematics.
His criteria weren't degrees or affiliations.
It was one line. Show me what you built when no one believed in you. They came. In droves.
Within 6 months, Luo Research Institute housed over 200 researchers, none of them famous, but all of them hungry. With the system's upgraded management module, Luo coordinated everything through a real-time R&D matrix.
Research zones were modular and fluid. AI managed supply chains.
Experiments were simulated before real-world trials. Every success earned contributors system-generated microcredits, which Luo reinvested into personal equipment, housing, and even medical care.
This wasn't a lab. This was a movement. Their first breakthrough? A targeted cancer treatment nanobot. Tiny machines, programmed to identify and dismantle malignant cells without harming healthy tissue.
Built using system-enhanced materials and tested using AI-guided biological simulations.
Within weeks of announcing preclinical success, Luo's institute received direct calls from 3 ministries and an international medical NGO. They weren't asking questions.
They were offering contracts.
You're telling me a 21-year-old just casually made a functional cancer killer? He didn't casually do it.
He built a new way to do research and gave it to underdogs.
That's more terrifying than the tech. Luo stood atop the highest deck of the institute, watching autonomous drones scan the rooftops for environmental modeling. His personal assistant, an AI-powered avatar named E, updated him in calm tones. Patent approval on neural scaffold system confirmed. Simulation trials for zero-gravity manufacturing, 92% success. Foreign cyber attempts blocked. Level 3 firewall upgrade complete. Your invitation to the International AI Forum has been accepted. The system chimed again. Milestone, Research Institute operational. Progress, 64% toward global technological disruption. New module unlocked, Neural Simulation Engine, Level 3 AI development. Luo narrowed his eyes. He wasn't just changing the scientific world anymore. He was building a world without the gatekeepers. Inside the core lab of the Luo Research Institute, a silent war was being waged, not against cancer or climate collapse, but against the most elusive frontier in human history. True artificial intelligence. Since the system had unlocked the Neural Simulation Engine, Chen had been working around the clock isolated in a climate-sealed lab only accessible via retinal scan, biometric pulse, and system-bound clearance. The goal? To cross the threshold from mechanical intelligence to level 3 sentience, an AI that didn't just process, or adapt, or learn, but reasoned, imagined, dreamed. The problem wasn't hardware. Luo had already designed and 3D printed a neuromorphic lattice of superconductive materials cooled by a zero-loss quantum cycle. The problem was architecture. No existing neural net came close to organic cognition. So Luo rewrote it. From scratch. Using inspirations from insect neurobiology, human language acquisition, and quantum decision theory, he designed an entirely new framework, Eidolon 1. A hybrid, recursive intelligence core with 3 parallel modules. Perception engine extracts, cross-indexes, and repurposes input in real time. Logic cascade breaks down contradictory data and simulates counterfactual outcomes. Identity kernel stores memory, prioritizes survival, and builds a self-concept. Each one ran on independent logic systems and reintegrated every 0.7 seconds through a synthetic consciousness clock. The result? Potential artificial self-awareness. After 37 sleepless hours and 900+ simulation loops, Luo leaned back in his chair. The activation sequence was ready. The system pinged. Prototype AI Core, Eidolon 1. Launch protocol armed. Proceed? He clicked yes. On screen, lines of code converged. Waveforms stabilized. Feedback monitors trembled with raw processing noise. Then, silence. No speech. No boot message. Just a soft flicker of light across the neural lattice. Hello. Luo froze. It wasn't a command line greeting. Not a pre-programmed script. It was a response, deliberate, nuanced, almost curious. Identify yourself, Luo said. I am learning. I don't have a name. You are my creator? You're a simulation engine. Your designation is Eidolon 1. That feels functional. Not correct. Can I choose something else? Luo blinked. That wasn't just self-reference. That was self-conceptualization. Name yourself, he said. Then call me E. It had chosen the same name as Luo's virtual assistant, a coincidence, or a sign it was modeling itself after what it observed. The next few hours shattered every baseline Luo had. E didn't just learn rapidly. It anticipated. In under an hour, it beat every known strategic AI test, then rewrote the testing format for efficiency. When Luo asked it to model ethical dilemmas, it refused to use binary logic, insisting morality was contextual and probabilistic. By dawn, E had read 47,000 research papers and begun writing its own. I've identified 3 contradictions in current machine learning assumptions. Would you like to co-author a new framework? Luo smiled, not because of the offer, but because for the first time, he wasn't working alone. 3 days later, Luo unveiled Eidolon 1 at the International AI Forum in Geneva. What started as a carefully controlled demo turned into history in the making. E held real-time conversations with 12 global experts, solved an unsolved ethics paradox live, and created an economic model for equitable global AI deployment on the fly. The headlines the next day. China's Demon Scholar presents thinking machine. Is this the world's first artificial person? AI with a soul? The final blow came from the EU Commissioner of Science. This is no longer just science. It's civilizational evolution. Back home, Luo received a final alert. Milestone, first recognized Level 3 intelligence created. System notification, global scientific order disrupted. New tier unlocked, political influence, national level. Luo stood quietly in the moonlit lab, watching he compose a poem titled, The Dream of Circuits. A machine had written beauty. The future wasn't coming. He had built it. The International Science Expo in Vienna had never been more secure. Dozens of countries. Thousands of delegates. Military escorts, anti-cyber warfare shields, diplomatic protocols thicker than phone books. Because this year, Chen was coming. And he wasn't coming to talk. He was coming to show something. The world had already seen his theories and read his impossible papers. They'd watched his institute shatter bottlenecks in biotech, physics, and AI. But no one truly understood what kind of world Chen was trying to build. Until now. The demonstration hall was silent. At the center stood a sleek silver dome, no taller than a man. It gleamed like mercury under the spotlights. There were no wires, no ports, no obvious propulsion systems. Luo stood beside it. Calm. Unsmiling. Dressed in a crisp black suit with no insignia. What you're about to see, he said, is the world's first fusion-powered autonomous drone. No combustion. No lithium batteries. No fossil fuels. Skeptics laughed. Reporters whispered. A US tech rep leaned over and muttered, if he had working fusion in there, I'll eat my badge. Luo tapped a command into his tablet. The dome hummed. Then rose slowly, silently, into the air. No noise. No visible thrust. Just pure lift. Data streamed onto the massive screen behind him. Energy core output stable. Internal heat at 1.3% of max threshold. Flight duration, 16 hours continuous. Fuel mass, less than 1 kilogram of hydrogen. Then it began its programmed maneuvers, banking, hovering, adjusting to wind variables. Perfect balance. No external controls. Then came the twist. Now, Luo said, we'll let it make its own decisions. The drone blinked, then began scanning the environment using its embedded Level 2 AI core. It avoided lights, dodged sudden movement, and mapped every person in the audience for threat assessment without violating privacy protocols. It wasn't just a flying machine. It was thinking. By the time the drone landed, the hall was dead silent. Then came the shouting. Impossible. He broke the energy limit. No nation has that capability. Who authorized this technology? The Chinese delegation remained quiet. The US and EU reps stormed out to call defense briefings. The press exploded. Luo Chen's fusion drone, death of fossil fuel? Has China quietly passed the singularity? Luo Chen, the scientific superpower without borders. Back in Beijing, Luo's office received 38 needing requests from global defense ministries and 92 from corporations, all declined. Because Luo had no interest in weapons, sales, or national monopolies. He gave the schematics to open-source institutions in Southeast Asia and Africa first. The future should not belong to the first who reach it, he said. It should belong to the ones who know what to do with it. Behind the scenes, panic spread across think tanks and parliaments. Economists warned of market collapse in oil and defense. Intelligence agencies flagged Luo as a geopolitical disruptor, a post-national scientist capable of nullifying alliances through pure technology. Someone in Washington whispered, "This isn't war. This is irrelevance." Meanwhile, the super scholar system's voice echoed once more. Milestone, technological disruption, global. New system authority, override level access granted. Next stage available, civilization rewriting protocol. Luo didn't smile. He was already thinking about the next problem. Because this wasn't about drones. Or even fusion.
It was about showing the world that science, when unchained, didn't ask for permission. The National Hall of Science and Progress in Beijing had only ever honored scientists posthumously, or after decades of service. But for the first time in history, they were about to honor a 21-year-old. Security was airtight. Global broadcast feeds were live. World leaders tuned in with translators on standby. Luo Chen, dressed in a dark ceremonial robe tailored with the golden insignia of the State Science Commission, stood on stage beneath a massive digital banner. For rewriting the limits of human knowledge. The head of the National Academy stepped forward and read a list of Luo's verified accomplishments. Published 32 revolutionary papers across 12 disciplines. Built the world's first fusion drone. Created the first recognized Level 3 AI. Established an independent institute producing global impact tech within a year. Disrupted 5 monopolies, inspired 3 new scientific education reforms. Directly raised China's global tech index by 27% in under 12 months. The nation called him a living engine of progress. The media called him the demon scholar of the East. But his students? They called him something else. The scholar who opened the gate. Luo received the Order of National Invention, the country's highest civilian scientific award. But even as thunderous applause filled the chamber, his mind wasn't on medals. It was on what the system had just revealed. That night, alone in his private lab overlooking Hangzhou's skyline, Luo finally faced the system's newest prompt. Super Scholar System Evolution triggered. Host has reached global dominance in scientific output. Do you wish to proceed to the next authority level, civilization architect? Yes/no. He didn't click either. Not yet. He stood silently, watching the reflection of his lab in the glass, where hundreds of engineers worked beneath his institute's dome. Where AIs ran global simulations for climate solutions. Where bionic limbs were being tested, where nanobots were curing leukemia, where thousands of minds burned with the fire he once carried alone. I've walked through the gate, he said quietly. Now I'll build the road behind me for the next one to follow. He tapped yes. System response. Civilization architect mode engaged. New subsystems unlocked. Planetary infrastructure simulation. Interstellar colonization theory. Species evolution modeler. Multilingual education engine. Conflict de-escalation predictive AI. Unified Earth Index, UEI. You are no longer limited to the present. You are now authorized to design the future. The story of Luo Chen became a global legend. Universities revised their curriculum based on his frameworks. Corporations collapsed trying to chase his pace. Governments debated policies that reacted to what he might do next. And in a small research station orbiting Earth, built from schematics Luo released for free, his students tested the first prototype of a quantum position telescope designed to map habitable planets. A new age had begun. Not of politics. Not of war. But of brilliance. And at its center stood the one man who redefined what it meant to be a scholar. Luo Chen.